The light being's methods of rescue. People's activity on earth is visible in the spiritual world, and it increases the light being's eagerness to help because they, too, know of the approaching end and the fate of those who will fail. Merciful love constantly impels them to help, but people's will frequently resists them, and they are not allowed to act in opposition to people's will. But since they recognize people's spiritual state, they also know effective remedies, and in complete compliance with God's will use these methods in order to influence earthly events. Hence joyful as well as unfortunate events can be due to these light beings' influence who want to save or lead their protégés to God. For God himself has joined them to people as spiritual guides, and therefore the well-being of their protégés' souls is particularly dear to their heart. They, too, know the blessings of suffering for all people, and thus suffering is often unavoidable, even though the beings of light are full of love for people. But to have saved a soul is gladdening for every being of light. After all, they know the infinitely long-lasting state of torment the spirit will have to endure if it gets constrained into matter again. Compared to this state of torment, even the worst suffering on earth can be called trivial, and therefore it is used by the helpers such that they will destroy earthly happiness and thereby so painfully intervene in a person's life that a loving motive is barely recognizable. Nevertheless, it is only due to love and concern for the human being's soul which is in utmost danger. For as long as it still lives on earth it will not be abandoned by its spiritual friends and guides. And since you humans have increasingly less time until the end, these painful interventions will also become ever more frequent, for they act on God's instruction, they are merely his co-workers who act in accordance with his will. People collect ever more earthly possessions, they pay consistently more homage to the world and its pleasures, and thus their earthly happiness often has to be destroyed. They have to experience the destruction of earthly goods and learn to recognize the staleness of worldly joys. And all this is only possible if they don't get their own way, if misfortunes prevent their unbridled enjoyment of whatever they are striving for. Then it will be possible to turn their thoughts in a different direction, and in that case the earthly loss would be a huge spiritual gain. Then the beings of light will have been victorious and helped the souls to gain life, for which the souls will be eternally grateful to them. The darkness in which people live on earth is obvious to all beings of light, and they also know that the world is to blame. Hence, they only ever endeavor to turn people's thoughts away from the world and try to achieve this by using apparently harsh and heartless methods which, however, are always based on love, because they are as one with God and therefore also full of love for all wretched beings on earth. There is only little time left until the end, but this time will indeed be very difficult, because all souls which do not voluntarily renounce the world and turn to God will have to be affected. And thus, every difficult experience, every harsh stroke of fate should be considered methods of rescue, which with divine approval still have to be used on people who are at risk of descending into the abyss. For every soul has its helper and guardian in the beyond, nevertheless, they always have to respect its will, or no human being would in fact go astray but instead find his way back to God before the end. Amen.